Call the meeting to order. If you'd all join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Look for an approval of the minutes.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
The motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
That motion passes. Tabitha, additions, deletions to the agenda?
Not at this time.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Discussion on the agenda? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes. Our next item of business this morning is to recognize Emergency Medical Services Week, which is not only this week for Morrison County, but it is national for the entire United States of America. And I believe we have three people with us today. Four. Good grief. Okay. We do have four. And if you'd all introduce yourselves, and then I believe we have a proclamation. Please go ahead.
I'm Emily Loomis with Morrison County Public Health.
I'm John Ulrich from MLMP.
Sarah Pratt, Morrison County Public Health.
Pat Boone, Camp Ripley Fire, and I also chair the Morrison County Public Safety
Very good.
Organization.
Thank you.
Emergency Medical Services Week, a proclamation by the Morrison County Public Safety Group to designate the week of May 21st to the 27th, 2018 as Emergency Medical Services Week. Whereas emergency medical services are a vital public service and the members of Emergency Medical Services team are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and access to quality emergency services could dramatically improve the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness and injury. And emergency medical services have grown to fill a gap by providing important out-of-hospital care, including preventative medicine, follow-up, and access to telemedicine. And the emergency medical services consists of first responders, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, medical dispatchers, firefighters, law enforcement, public emergency preparedness coordinators, emergency nurses, emergency physicians, trained members of the public, and other medical providers. And the members of emergency medical services teams, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. And it is important to recognize the value and the accomplishments of emergency medical services providers by designating Emergency Medical Services Week. Now therefore, be it resolved that we, the Board of Morrison County Commissioners of the great state of Minnesota, in recognition of this event, do hereby proclaim the week of May 21st to the 27th, 2018, Emergency Medical Services Week in Morrison County. And we call this observance to the attention of all of our citizens and encourage the community to show its appreciation.
I'll make a motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Gentlemen, discussion.
I just would like to say thank you to the firefighters, the EMS, and everybody involved in helping with the safety and well-being of others. It's a noble cause, and they're willing and ready to help someone in a blink of an eye, and it's a good thing, and we're appreciative of that.
And again, Commissioner, well said. Thank you very much for everything you guys do.
I'd like to thank you, too. You know, there's first responders and things like that. You know, there are people that are out there that are the first ones on the call a lot of times, and it's really appreciated that people are all over the county to help us. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I'd also like to simply say that I've been involved in this business for a long time, in particular the business that you're in, and I very much appreciate what is done. I'm honored to be able to say that I sit on the Joint Powers Board for the region for EMS, and am your representative and the county representative, and I chair that committee, and I cannot say how important it is to have first responders, to have ambulance personnel, fire, law enforcement. They're all first responders today. They're all EMS. They all should be, and deserve to be recognized during this week. So thank you all very, very kindly. Further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. I wonder if you could all stick around and maybe come up front if we could have a photograph? Perfect. Please. Front and center. Front and center. Stand next to something. Stand like this. My goodness. Beautiful. Does that work?
Yeah.
Does it fit?
It is perfect. That's what I was going to say.
Outstanding. Thank you all very, very kindly. Appreciate it a lot. See you. Thank you.
Where were you?
I love that respect. We'll be talking. Next item of business is Foster Care Month, another proclamation. Good morning. We have two of you today, I think, that's all? Yes, two. And if you could introduce yourselves, please, and then I believe you also have a proclamation?
Sarah Pratt, Morrison County Social Services.
Melanie Erickson, Morrison County Social Services.
Welcome.
Whereas the family serving as the primary source of love, identity, self-esteem, and support is the very foundation of our communities, our state, and our country. And whereas in 2017, there were 66 children in Morrison County licensed foster homes. Foster care provides a safe, secure, and stable home for children while also providing compassion and nurturance of a family setting. And whereas in 2018, Morrison County Social Services currently has 46 licensed foster families, relative foster families who have opened their homes and hearts to children whose families are in crisis, play a vital role helping children and families heal, reconnect, and launch children into successful adulthood. And whereas in 2017, there were over 116 adults in Morrison County licensed adult foster homes, and whereas Morrison County Social Services currently has 33 licensed foster care providers who have opened their homes to provide a family environment to individuals with developmental disabilities, mental illness, or who are elderly, and whereas there are numerous individuals, public and private organizations who work to increase public awareness of the needs of children and adults in foster care, as well as the enduring and valuable contribution of foster care providers. Now, therefore, we, the Morrison County Board of Commissioners, do hereby proclaim May as Foster Care Month in Morrison County and urge all citizens to volunteer their talents and energies on behalf of children and adults in foster care, foster parents, and the professional staff working with them during this month and throughout the year.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Gentlemen, discussion.
Again, if I may, Mr. Chairman, my wife and I, we were foster parents years ago, and again, we realized too, again, how some of these children need a little bit, just a kick in the butt when they're having a crisis or something like that, or to help them out when their family is. And again, it was a very great experience for both of us, and so again, I see how important this is for families to reach out and help someone that's in need.
I would like to say thank you to the foster families out there who take care of the children, but also those with disabilities and the adults out there. Their compassion is well noted, and we appreciate it very much.
I'd like to say the same thing. It's important to have people that'll help people that need help, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'd also like to extend my thanks, but also recognition that, especially in this day and age, that we have a great need for foster families out there, foster parents. And so on behalf of the board, our greatest appreciation to all those parents out there who are willing to be foster parents. And thank you for your work.
Good. And my comment is, I don't believe that there's anyone that knows, anyone that has any idea until this service is needed. just like social services. Some might think social services is some kind of hidden, secret word that nobody wants to ever touch, nobody ever wants to get involved in. There's a lot of pieces that fall underneath social services. This is another one of those pieces that is quiet, that nobody knows about until someone needs that type of service. It's amazing. So thank you all very, very kindly. I appreciate that. And with that in mind, we've got a motion, we've got a second, we've got discussion. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes, and I wonder if you two would like to step up and we could take a photograph with you two honoring this day.
Would love to. I can
Take my glasses off.
Sorry.
Randy, you got to go in front.
Neil. No.
Never get them up. Come on.
Catch them when they're not talking. That's the bigger challenge here. One guy, that was perfect.
Thank you. Thank you.
Pictures.
We can think about how to do that next year a little better.
Go from there, anyway. Once in a while, they go in the paper, I think.
Suppose you miss all those photo ops, huh?
All righty, we've got that taken care of. Our next item is item number 7 for Mark, and that is going to be South Country Health Alliance. And if you want to, take a chair right over here. You'll be able to see everything then, and it'll all work better. And if the both of you would be kind enough to introduce yourselves, and we'll go from there.
Good morning. Leota Limps from South Country Health Alliance. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to appear before you again. Along with me today is Scott Scheffman, our CFO, and as we did last spring, we're going to spend this meeting just kind of focused on a report of last year's year-end financials, a snapshot of where we're at, and then a few upcoming highlights. So with that, I will turn it over to Scott.
Good morning.
Good morning, Scott.
All right. Well, we're going to start out with our year-end audit results. We go to the next page there. Clifton Larson Allen is our external auditor, have been for quite a few years. They completed their work here for year-end 2017. As in past years, no misstatements, no audit adjustments, and an unqualified opinion. They do an opinion for us on a statutory basis because we are an insurance organization. We don't do GAAP accounting, so their opinion is reflected that way. But an unqualified opinion is a clean opinion. We have had a series of good audits, good clean audits, and favorable opinions going back in history, and we certainly plan to continue that trend. So again, good results there. Some of this will be a little bit hard to read, but I'll highlight these. We did finish last year, 2017, with a net surplus of just under $5.5 million versus a planned loss of $1.3 million. So very good results for 2017 versus budget, and I'll touch on here some of what was driving that. If we go to the next one, please. So the big variance here comes in our revenue. We finished the year at just under $273 million. More importantly, $7.3 million favorable to budget. We did finish the year almost identical to budget in terms of number of members. So we're not over in revenue because we exceeded budget by number of members. We are over because our risk score accuracy on both our federal and state programs improved. Risk score being the underlying diagnoses on our members that are captured as part of the claims submission process. And what that does is determines multipliers in what kind of funding we get for that particular member given their underlying health conditions. And so this is something that we've been focused on for quite some time, but we had some significant improvement in the accuracy results there, and that drove an additional 7+ million in revenue. In terms of, thank you. In terms of claims, our overall claims were just under $250 million. That was $1.3 million unfavorable to budget. Again, unfavorable claims, but $1 million variance on a $250 million number is very close to budget given the volatility in the healthcare space. When we combine those two metrics, we get a ratio that healthcare organizations are measured on. It's called loss ratio. We take our total claims divided by revenue, and we finish the year at 91.5%. That's a full 2 percentage point improvement to budget, which is a significant favorable variance. Basically, this says for every $100 we have coming in, we pay $91.5 in claims costs. And this is something that we always strive to reduce from an efficiency standpoint, but made very, very significant progress there versus budget. Past couple of years, we have had premium deficiency reserves for the subsequent year where we anticipated losses in these lines of business. We did not need to book a premium deficiency reserve in 2017 because we did not anticipate ongoing losses in the current year or 2018. So that's good news as well. And then lastly, our administrative expenses. Staff did a good job bringing the budget in about $700,000 favorable to budget. It's 2 years in a row where we've had significant favorability in our spending and lowered our percent of admin to revenue ratio down to 9.2%. So not too long ago, we were in the low 10s. We're striving to continue to move that number downward and again, finish significantly lower than budget for that particular metric. One important number on our balance sheet, what's our capital and surplus or the overall equity in the plan? This represents the county's equity. You can see in 2016, we had dropped down to just over 20 million. We had achieved about a $30 million surplus prior to the 2016 results where we did have a $10.3 million booked loss. And so that lowered us down to that $20 million level. You can see in 2017, we grew that back to $25.8 million, given the net surplus that we did have last year. So grew back more than half of that loss from the prior year. Hard to see this, hard for me to see this actually. I have my copy here, but let me just get that so I make sure I give you the right numbers. Really what we highlighted here is when we look at our results, we have about 3 lines of business that we have been experiencing losses in for the past several years. And we did finish the year with those losses in those same 3 lines, and I'll read them off to you here. Minnesota Care and PMAP, our prepaid medical assistance, are the first 2 columns there. Those are by large where most of our membership is. We finished the year with Minnesota Care at a $700,000 loss, PMAP at a $2.2 million loss. These are after the premium deficiency reserve offset. And so you see loss ratios there in Minnesota Care exceeding 100%. That's an area, a line of business that we expect dramatic improvement on in 18. This is one of the lines of business that received the highest rate increase for 2018, a 17% increase. Finally reflecting some of that underlying claims experience that we've had for 2 or 3 years. This has typically been $1 million or more dollar line loss of $1 million or more loss of business in this particular line. PMAP at 94.8% there is something that, again, we have a lot of programs designed to focus on that loss ratio and help improve the efficiency in that claims expense. And again, with most of our members in PMAP, that's where a lot of that attention is going to be. The remaining Medicaid programs there, MSC Plus and our special needs basic care programs all contributed nice surpluses in 2017. And then finally, over to the right, our senior care product on the Medicare side, or MSHO, some of you might be familiar with, did finish with $4.4 million surplus, an 85% loss ratio. That has been a very good performing line of business for us. And then finally, Finally, Ability Care, we have several hundred members in there, a very important program. Finished the year with a loss of $400,000. Again, a loss ratio just over 100%. This is a line of business that we are continually trying to move new lives into to spread out that risk. It's been generally fairly closed block of business of the same people getting a year older each and every year. And so we're trying to bring new lives into that space to kind of spread out some of that risk. But overall, there again, finishing the year at $5.5 million and an improved loss ratio of 91.5%. I think I made all of these points as we went through there, so we'll move on to a series of graphs. We won't spend a lot of time on here, but sometimes it's helpful to look at, this is the last 15 years for South Country Health Alliance, and basically shows that we have varying results, but we have had many more years positive than we have negative. Back in 2007 through 09 were some tough times, and then as we mentioned in 2016, we had a significant loss, the $10.3 million, which included a $7 million premium deficiency reserve. I think the difference here, as you look over time, the loss was shorter and the recovery quicker here when we look at 2016 and 2017, and we'll see similar results when we look at the next couple of graphs. So we move on to our surplus position over that same time frame. Again, you can see that when 2007 through 2009 happened, we got down to a pretty thin surplus around that $10 million range, but had only achieved a high there of about $20 million prior to those series of losses. What was different in 2016 is that we had the surplus to cover that $10 million loss. We had achieved a peak there of just over $30 million. We're able to withstand that $10 million loss, and now we've grown back up to that $25.8 million level in just 1 year. And how this all comes together on the next slide, this is how we're measured by the Commerce Department. It's called risk-based capital. It's a ratio, a measure of our capital and surplus. That red line is the state requirement. It's a formula that they require a 200% minimum threshold for it to be really a going concern with no issues. Our board imposed target is that green line, to be at 400% or twice the legal minimum. And then you can see how our results have varied over time. We did dip under that threshold back in 2008, 9, and 10, and that was a lot of circumstances leading to that. As you approach, get under 200% and down to 100%, the Commerce Department and state have the authority to require, in this case, counties to put more dollars back in, and they did do that back in that time frame. Again, you can see in 16, while we did take that hit, we still maintained above that 200%. The scale of the graph doesn't really do it justice. We finished that year at 223% and now have grown back to 255% in 1 year. Obviously, our goal is to get back into that 300 to 400% range over time. Just touch on the budget really quickly. We do expect our membership to grow this year. We had budgeted an increase of about 7%. We continue to get additional members in from the programs. And then, of course, we grew in May of last year with the Medica exit from this business and South Country picking up those members in our counties. We grew by about 8,000 members back in May of 2017. We're expecting our revenue to be up about 16% to a new threshold, breaking the $300 million mark. Our program expenses or claims we expect to be in line with our membership growth. However, we are budgeting to continue to further reduce that loss ratio by 1 full percentage point on top of the decrease we were able to achieve last year. Leota will be updating you on our 3-year strategic targets where we actually have more of a stretch goal for that number. Our administrative expenses are projected to be up about 7%. I have a little bit of detail on that on the next page. We are adding some full-time equivalents if we go to the next slide. In 2018, employee-related costs going up 6.5%. We are bringing some functions or finishing bringing some functions as well as bringing some new functions in-house that were previously done externally. In addition to that, building out our Health Information Exchange, or HIE function, and adding a couple positions there. This is electronic health record, that system and data that we want to bring to each of our member counties, and then also share data with other counties across the state. So if we go on to the next, our overall budget for 2018 is expected to be a positive $2.2 million. Again, against last year's budget of $1.3 million loss. And then down in the ratio section, I mentioned that loss ratio. Again, we expect a continued decline in that, as well as our admin expense to drop to 8.9%, so under that 9% level as we continue to work on lowering our loss ratio and lowering our admin expense as a percentage of revenue. By line of business, we really have the same usual suspects as we had in the past few years, with the exception of Minnesota Care, which has been really a loss in each of the past few years. We're expecting a small gain there with that rate increase that we received from the state. We expect losses in PMAP continued, even though we had a 5% rate increase there. Again, that's where a majority of our members are, so a bulk of our costs get allocated to that line of business. So we do expect a loss there. Ability Care, while we have budgeted a small loss there, we hope we can get that line to a break-even basis. And then Single Care was a line of business that historically had a very low loss ratio and did receive an actual rate cut for this year, and so we're budgeting a very small loss there. It's like $25,000, so we're expecting that line to be about a break even at the end of the year. We do have opportunities to exceed that budget. I mentioned risk score accuracy was instrumental last year in contributing additional revenue, and we have further work to do in that area. So it will be an ongoing focus for us in 18, including moving some of the processes that have been done both internally and by our third-party administrators to our actuarial services firm. Certain Health Services is a recognized expert in the area of encounter reporting with the state. And so we are moving that work to them in hopes to further improve our overall accuracy and hopefully generate some incremental revenue for that. Utilization management is a function that is previously done by our TPA. We are bringing that in-house by 1/1 of 2019, and we'll be staffing up that area in late 2018. We think we can have a better control and understanding of our members with that function if we now do that internally. Data and analytics is something that we continue to advance with the creation of our data warehouse and some of the tools, which really helps all of our areas of work by getting better access to and better breakdown of data to help us with some of our programs and some of our decision making. And then finally, we will be changing third-party administrators for our medical claims function by the end of this year, 1/1 of 19. We will be moving from Mayo Health Solutions to Prime West as our back office provider of claim servicing. Mayo Health Solutions was bought late last year by Medica, and after looking at a continued relationship with them and went out for a request for proposal, the board approved our move to Prime West as of 1/1/2019. So we'll be transitioning that work to Prime West, and we think a combination of that operation as well as some of the things we're bringing in-house will give us a nice balance of external and internal and lower our overall costs even further in that admin area. Really simple. Last year we did a good job of really managing all three legs of the three-legged stool. We need to continue to do that, and that's really focusing on revenue, focusing on that claims expense. We want to make sure every member gets the programs and services that they need, but we also want to be efficient with those. And so we continue to look at those to manage that cost. It really is our biggest opportunity of these three. And then obviously being a good steward with our dollars and continuing to manage our admin costs in a favorable way. And then finally, just a brief snapshot. I won't go over everything highlighted here, but this is our first quarter results of 2018. And so through 3 months, we are at a loss of just under $1 million. We expected to be at a loss at this stage in the year, even though we have a positive budget for the entire year. We expected to be at a loss of just under $800,000. So we're about $200,000 unfavorable to budget at this point in the year, 3 months in. And the biggest item here, really there's two. Revenues being short at this year is a result of every year we have a drop off in January of our membership. People fall off some of our programs, need to re-qualify, submit paperwork, et cetera, and then we see them come back on February, March, April of the same year. We had a bigger drop than we anticipated in our budget, and so far through the first 3 months we have not caught up on a revenue standpoint, and that's the driver of that $1.2 million. You can see overall our claims expenses are favorable, but I'll really drill down on just one item here to kind of point out kind of the changing landscape that we deal with. On that pharmacy claims line, you can see that we're about $1.1 million to $1.2 million unfavorable in 3 months. That is primarily driven by literally 2 prescriptions for 2 of our members. A new drug was approved in late 2017. We had 2 members that qualified for that drug. It's $125,000 a dose for each of those members. And the loading dose is 3 doses, followed by a 4th dose within the first 2 months. If they continue to make improvement, qualify for those, they'd be $125,000 each 4 months. Conceptually in perpetuity, if they continue to perform favorably with that. So we have 2 members that had the right diagnosis and qualified for that drug. That is $1 million variance in that 3 months from just those 2 prescriptions. So we also can tell you that of our 40,000 member base, we don't have any other members currently diagnosed with that condition. So just point that out because we have new drugs, new procedures, things coming all the time. And so these are things we continue to look at what we can manage in what we know. And that helps us offset some of these new things that come to light, including new medications that some of our members may qualify for. So I'd say overall through 3 months, we're in pretty good shape to be $200,000 within budget, looking good still on an admin standpoint. Of course, a lot of that's timing at this point in the year, but from a first quarter standpoint, we're very happy with the results at this point. Finally, the same 3 lines of business we spoke of, these a little bit clearer than the previous slide, but Minnesota Care through the first 3 months is still in a loss position, but you can see that loss ratio is down. 97% is nothing to be excited about, but it's an improvement over where we finished last year, mainly in part because we are getting additional revenue there. PMAP, as I mentioned, we expect to lose some money there, but we're at a little bit bigger loss year to date than we expected through 3 months because that is where those 2 members are that I mentioned. That's $1 million of that loss just from those 2 prescriptions. And then finally, Ability Care. Again, this is a line of business that we would be happy to work towards, and we will, trying to get that line to a break even. It's not a line of business we expect to make money on. It's a very important program for our members, but again, we continue to try and bring new lives into there to improve its results overall. So that's really a wrap-up of finances where we were last year and a little snapshot of this year. And then Leota's got a brief update here on our strategic goals that we set.
So just at a very high level, last year we knew that we really needed to kind of focus in on restoring the financial stability after the year of losses. And so we set some 3-year targets for our medical loss ratio and our admin. And then also the other big priority that we had was to really look at our workforce and put things in place to ensure that we're able to recruit and retain a high-quality workforce. It's key to the work that we do. So on the next slide, just to give you some With our medical loss ratio, we had a target of 90%. We came in at 91.5, so we did not hit our goal, but as Scott said, we did have a 2% improvement over our budget, so some significant gains. I'm not going to go through the lower levels. We just identified some things on there to give you some ideas of the objectives that were put in place to help us accomplish that. On the next slide, for our admin expense, we had a target of hitting that 10%, and we actually did extremely well on that one. We hit our second year goal in the first year, and so we'll continue to move forward. But our goals continue to be stretch goals, maybe not so much on the admin, but our medical loss ratio will be a stretch goal for us this year with the 88%. And again, just some of the activities that we put in place to help us achieve those goals. And our third was the workforce, a number of pieces that we started. We're continuing with much of that work into 18. So in 18, as well as the strategic goals that we have, there are a number of other things that are going on. There currently is the special needs basic care procurement that's being done by the state of Minnesota. We're finalizing our response back at the office as we speak here, and that is due to the state tomorrow. We anticipate the state will be providing notice in June of who they will enter into contract agreements, contract negotiations with for special needs basic care for 2019. Our third-party administrator transition, as Scott indicated, we're moving to Prime West as of 1/1/19. That work started back in February. This is a big process, a lot of work groups going on. It's actually a great opportunity for us to kind of step back and look at things that have been put in place a number of years ago, and are they still the right processes? Do we need to modify them? Do we need to change them? And move that forward. Our Encounter data transition over to certain health systems, and bringing that utilization management program in-house. That was something that we're looking at doing in a couple of years, but given the transition with the claims payer, it didn't make sense to transition that to a new vendor just to move it again in 2 years. And so we moved that up in our planning process, and we'll be implementing that internally on 1/1/19. And as we indicated, continuing to really focus on that claims area. That's our biggest area of opportunity for really impacting the financial performance and impacting that medical loss ratio. A number of initiatives that we're working on. Low-value services are services that have been identified that are often done, but really do not bring any extra value to the member or change the outcome for the member. So Dr. Brad has been really reviewing our data within our system, has pulled that data together, and will be going out and meeting with providers and talking with them about some of these services and the utilization of those that we see happening within our network, and working together to find ways to change that. We also have a significant focus this year on transportation and durable medical equipment, just stepping back, reviewing all of our policies. But these are also areas that are really high potential areas for potential fraud and abuse. So looking at that and making sure that we have processes in place to detect that. And then focusing on high-risk pregnancy and behavioral health. These are areas that we have high prevalence within the population that we serve, and so really working along with our counties to develop programs and services where we can, for the high-risk pregnancy and behavioral health both, opportunities to identify and intervene early on to provide the best possible outcomes for these individuals. So those are our focuses. Any questions?
Comments, concerns?
Question, again, this was probably brought up years ago. With your revenues, based on last year, 5.4, I believe, in your net income versus the 1.3 budgeted, does any of that money ever go back to the counties? Because again, if the counties back in 2008, 2010, each county put in X amount of dollars, and I thought maybe we did get a revenue check at one time. Yes, no, or
what we've done is done that through our community reinvestments. So as you'll recall, in 2014, we did $3 million in community reinvestments that funded projects across all of our counties. So typically what we we strive to do is to get our reserves up to that board level, that 400%. And then when we exceed that, that's when we have the opportunity to do those reinvestment programs back into our communities.
Because I understand it's very volatile, things can
It
go
is.
up and down. So, okay, answers my question, thank you.
And I do have one item that I'll just leave as a takeaway for you. Scott, you can describe that as I distribute.
Yeah, what we've been handing out, part of some of the new information we have, our actuarial firm actually prepared this for each of our counties. This really shows the top 10 providers within your county for South Country members in terms of spend. And so it just gives you an idea where those dollars go locally. Probably no surprises on there. What we've typically seen is one or two major providers in many cases within a county, but then you see some of the other ones that round out the top 10. And again, in most of these cases, those top 10 providers probably represent 90+% of the overall costs in the particular county. So this isn't necessarily all your county members, but it's people getting, South Country members getting service within your county at these providers. So it's really just kind of a leave behind and interesting information, but demonstrates a little bit of some of the drill down that we can do for the various analytics that we have.
Leota, I'm wondering if maybe I shouldn't have asked this of you right at the very start. In a nutshell, can you tell our audience what really is South Country? And I apologize, I should have asked you that right at the very beginning.
Absolutely. In a nutshell, we are a county-owned health plan that administers the public health care programs for the residents of our 11 member counties. So we administer the Medicaid benefits, and we also have 2 contracts with the federal government, so we have 2 programs where we also administer the Medicare benefits. So we function very similar to a health plan, but we go the step beyond in that it's not just the acute care services, the doctors, hospital visits, dentists, pharmacy. We coordinate and integrate with local public health, human services, and the other community resources that help an individual support their health.
Thank you very kindly. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I had a comment. I sat on that board for about the last 8 months. I've been an alternate before, but I want to thank him because, you know, they do a real professional job. Anybody can run business when everything is good. It's when business is bad and problems arise that how do you get out of that? And they've done a wonderful job. And in the health insurance business, it's just things are up and down. I think it's kind of astonishing when you hear what shots cost, and when you take $1 million out of the budget for 2 people, that can change things real fast. But I appreciate the fact I've seen what you've done. You've got a great board that you work with, and Commissioner Blaine will be on that board as of now. And I just want to thank you for all that you've done and how you've helped to get out of this situation.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate that.
Further questions, concerns, comments?
Mr. Chair, I sit on the finance board with Leota, and Scott does a great job with that. So I want to echo what Commissioner Wilson said, but also I always find it so interesting because not only is it insurance that's volatile and difficult sometimes, with only serving those that have the government programs. It's like we're playing a baseball game without the rules really defined, and we never know what the next inning will bring. But yet, you know, we gotta still win the game and stuff. And I think the citizens of the counties that you serve really do have the opportunity to win because we do work with our local staff to be able to influence that at times, and we don't always have that ability with the big companies that don't come here and talk with us and don't come to the staff and talk to them as much too. So I appreciate that. I think it's a good thing for our organization and for those that we serve. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I thank you both very, very kindly. I look forward to next time.
Thank you so much.
Have a
good
great
day.
summer.
Yeah, our next item of business is going to bring social services to the table.
I gotta get some coffee. I'm tired.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. As you know, May is Mental Health Month, and at the last board meeting, we did a presentation on adult mental health. And so today, we are going to bring Melanie here to talk a little bit about our children's mental health services in Morrison County.
Excellent.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board.
Good morning, Melanie.
Here to talk about children's mental health, as Brad said. Children's mental health is a service that the county must offer its citizens. And so at Morrison County, here we offer that internally within Morrison County Social Services in our Child and Family Unit. It serves kids 0 to 21, which is a little bit different. So you have that transition age of 18 to 21 that bridges over into, is still meeting the criteria of children's mental health services, which is a serious emotional disturbance. It's a voluntary service. And so families don't need to apply for this, but we offer it and as something that they can elect to get, and the services that they choose to participate in is also up to them as far as what they choose from our menu of services. The goal is to help children and parents understand what the mental health diagnosis is, what that means, what that looks like in their functioning in their day-to-day life, what those symptoms are, and then what coping skills and medications and therapies can assist with that particular diagnosis. Serious emotional disturbance is on the higher end of mental health for kids because some kids can be diagnosed with an emotional disturbance, but a serious emotional disturbance means that it impacts their daily functioning in their community and their school. And so that gets that higher criteria of kind of diagnosis. The threshold still to get into children's mental health is not as high as what you would see with adult mental health services. So adult mental health has that serious and persistent label. Children's would not be considered as serious as that. So just to give you some perspective. The point for children's mental health is early intervention. We really want to start working with kids as soon as possible to help them and their parents understand their mental health diagnosis and what they can do about it. So that's really our focus. As we have continue through offering this service, you can see our trend, again, adding much more cases with children's mental health. Part of that, again, as I visited other years here, is about having school-based mental health services and early identification. I think we have good staff on board that are very welcoming to families. I think that in some county, when they administer that service, it's kind of scary, but our staff are really talented at meeting with families and offering a nice and supportive service so that we are able to do that early intervention, which is a good thing. We're also experiencing, in the child protection side of our unit, a very high amount of cases coming in the door, more placements than I've ever seen since I've been here. And many of those kids are traumatized, and we're rolling those families into also children's mental health services. So that also accounts for some of that increase, is just that high degree of trauma that kids are experiencing. On the next slide, we just did a snapshot, and I apologize, there's an error on this slide. That's actually from 2018. I didn't catch that. So I just did a snapshot of the ages of kids that we had served just last month in April. And it's pretty consistent year to year. I've not seen this change other than we're consistently adding cases at the younger age, now up to 7 that we're serving before they enter school, which again is a good thing. That might sound kind of scary for folks in the community. Oh my goodness, you've got kids at that age already that are getting that intensive mental health service, but we'd rather be serving those kids. And many of those kids served that young will transition out of the service successfully. And as well as the school-age kids. Many of those kids are able to transition out of this service. So as you see, we only have one child in the 18 to 21-year-old age range, and that really has to do a lot with our cooperation and good working relationship we have with the adult mental health unit. And being able to transition those kids either into adult mental health if they are serious and persistent, trying to get that determination right away at 18 so we can roll them into adult services, or referring out to community-based services like ARMS, which are on the little lower end of the adult mental health continuum. And so we're really doing a lot of work to try to find the right service as those kids get into adulthood and get them matched as soon as we can. Again, we're fortunate we have some talented staff that understand well the continuum of adult mental health and children's mental health services, so that really helps with that. The next slide shows our continuum of children's mental health. As I'd mentioned, that emotional disturbance, which is more served in the outpatient community. And also, children's therapeutic services can be accessed for in-home counseling prior to kids getting a serious emotional disturbance diagnosis. And so there are a lot of services in our community focused on those individual and school-based services for kids right now. And then as they are, some kids are identified out of that system to receive that greater label, which is a severe emotional disturbance. Our continuum there starts with case management, a lot of those home-based services. Respite care is probably one of the most identified, it is the most identified service that families and kids tell us that they appreciate about children's mental health. Respite care may include staying at someone else's house for that break that kids need, that parents need, but it also is things that get them out in the community where they can practice those social skills and those coping skills that they're learning at like taekwondo or a sporting event, participating in a camp, participating in soccer, art class, all of those things, music lessons are things that we support families in accessing. And further down the line, you see that we can get certified disability. So that means through Social Security, the child's diagnosis reaches a certain level so that then they access regular medical assistance and a greater ability to access a few other services like behavioral analysis and the family support grant. So again, we're adding on some additional services that they can access. Next on line would be we'd look at a Min Choices assessment and then accessing the CADI waiver, which again is additional services that they can purchase or access within the community. Northern Pines right now provides YACT, which is Youth Assertive Community Treatment. So there's an adult act, and now there's a YACT. We're one of those pilot counties still. Northern Pines offers that service for ages 16 to 21, and they do the case management within that, as well as having in-home providers and psychiatry and all of that all rolled into one. So for some of our youth, we're accessing that. I will say we have not been able to access that service much at all. In the last year, we've had to carry those cases. Northern Pines just does not have the capacity right now to take referrals from us. So we've been managing those internally for the most part.
And I would say that's been an issue across the spectrum in terms of just the provider networks and the ability for these providers to staff at a level that's able to meet the needs of our caseloads. And it's been real challenging, I think, from time to time across the board for both adult and children's. Just the inability for organizations to hire staff to provide some of these services.
Right. So we've continued to hang on to those cases, despite our caseloads being quite high ourselves. And then as you get at the end of the continuum is the placement, where we have residential placement at facilities such as Northwoods. Those can be an assessment of 45 days up to 6, 9, or 12 months, depending on the severity of the diagnosis of the child and their ability to really gain those skills to come back into the community. And then we've also been accessing our corporate foster care. We have 2 local corporate foster care homes. So those are for kids on the CADI waiver, and then they actually are placed in that corporate home, and then they have intensive services really on a daily basis, that they provide as far as additional staff in that family home. So We have 2 of those right now in the community, and we may be looking at expanding that service in the future because an important change that will happen in 2019 with our residential treatment center is that service is really going to be changing quite a bit. The funding of that, the medical assistance at the federal level will not support that kind of service any longer because it is, I think they would say it's kind of too large of a facility. They want to bring it down to a smaller 16-bed is what they will fund. So if residential facilities in their traditional sense where they might have 60 kids is going to maintain, that's going to be 100% county dollars. And so there's a few a few residential facilities that are transitioning to this new model, but those, of course, they're going to have to drop to 16 beds, so the availability right now is going to be lower. Even so, when we've had kids that have needed residential placement this last year, they're coming in and out of hospitals, going to the hospital for suicide ideation, coming back out. We're trying to meet those needs. We've waited up to 8 months to get kids into a residential facility. The waiting lists are that long. So we've worked with our partners, quite a bit. We're all trying to problem solve along with the families and the kids for kids that are on that end of the continuum. It's kind of been a scramble to figure out how to meet their needs, how to keep them safe in the community, and how to really not just to contain them, but provide them therapy and services so they're improving. We're not just holding on to them and just kind of maintaining. We want to actually improve their well-being. And so I would say that the Min Choices and the Caddy has probably, and the foster homes have been our best ability to try to meet those needs, even though that's been limited.
It's a similar circumstance to what happened in the adult world when regional treatment centers closed. They're now moving in that direction with services for kids. They don't want these large facilities housing these kids, even though those kids were receiving treatment and all sorts of services combined within that facility. And so now counties are going to have to scramble a little bit to figure out how is this system going to work now without that availability. So, and they are developing some other services. Their PRTFs, which is a residential treatment service for kids, are trying to create some of those organizations, as well as some more intensive foster care services.
Right.
So
that's really too bad because I don't think that we've recovered. And maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think we've recovered since the state hospitals have pretty much closed their doors. Mm-hmm. And now we have another function of kind of the same thing, different age group, that are closing the doors. And I think it's going to take a long time, personally. Well, it is. Right now, you just gave the numbers. To recover from that, it's huge.
Yeah, and it's been a concern, too, for me because, and for our staff, with the PRTFs are a good concept, but they've had a hard time getting those up and running and building. Communities haven't wanted those facilities in their communities, so they cannot, even if they have a business that wants to open those, they haven't been able to open because it's not approved in that community. And so in the intensive foster care service, I've checked in all of our locations with our providers, and none of the providers are going to be offering that. I know I guess got the word back from Northern Pines that they're not going to be stepping into that realm either. So even though that's available, it's not really available for our kids here in Morrison County. So, we'll continue to try to see if there's some providers. I mean, we work on that on a regular basis. But kids are going to be in need here in the community, that is for sure. I just did a quick cost estimate just so that you could get a perception of what things are like. Most of our cases, are on the moderate side. Like I said, we do a good job at getting involved. We don't have a waiting list. We take families and we start working with them right away. And so most of our case that we serve would be on the moderate end of things. And, when they have healthcare costs, what it costs for county, this is county dollars. So this is not healthcare dollars. This is a capture of county dollars, what we invest from our local tax dollars. Moderate case healthcare, and they have healthcare coverage. No healthcare coverage with a moderate case. A high needs case with healthcare coverage, and no healthcare coverage again. And then what happens with placement. And that final number does not take into account the new rules that'll be in 2019. So that would be even greater with the residential placements not being covered, because this would capture if there was medical assistance funding. Just a couple of slides on out-of-home placement. That's something we track very carefully. Foster care has been consistent from 2015 to 17. Residential treatment just upticked a couple, which is kind of amazing. I think part of that, again, is, with our staff working really hard with that last group, which is CADI, corporate foster care. We're really accessing that service. Families and kids are happy with that service too, because that means they get to stay in their school system, they get to stay in their community, they get to see their families on a frequent basis. It just works out to be a more, I think, a service that meets more of their all-over well-being and connection needs to their community and their families. The next slide, I just, also when I look at our placements, I always kind of separate those that have a voluntary, so they're true voluntary service. That means that they have an intact family and the child has a diagnosis and needs placement. And so placement in foster care or all the way up to a residential facility. So I did some comparison numbers on that. And then what we're really seeing is that we have some state wards. That's been the major change of our placement. State wards that are accessing residential placement, particularly this year, quite a bit, and also in some waiver foster care situations. And again, that's got to do with that child protection issue, kids coming out of that system. These are older youth, so they're middle school, young high school age when they go through that trauma of termination of parental rights. You can imagine that's very difficult. They've experienced a lot in their lifetime, and they are needing a lot of intensive services to help get them ready for adoption. Next slide talks about just our different health plan coverage for children's mental health clients, and particularly when we talk about purchasing services, but also pays for our services as children's mental health case managers. Big change from about 5 years ago as there are more kids on medical assistance. That is because we're moving up that continuum and accessing more services through Academy and Choices assessment, family support grant. So kids are getting certified disabled so we can access some of those waivered MA services.
So they can't be on medical assistance or South Country Health Alliance and be on the waiver, so we have to move them to straight medical assistance to put them on a waiver.
Mm-hmm. If I may, Mr. Chair, the no insurance, private insurance, I'm assuming that 5% includes people that have their own insurance, but what about the no insurance? Why wouldn't they qualify? Is it because...
There are still a couple families that I would say do not want to apply for insurance, may decide to pay that, I can't think of what it's called.
Copay?
That, they
Well,
don't.
they pay the tax penalty.
Yes.
Which there is none anymore. That's been eliminated, I think, hasn't
No,
it?
they still have a tax penalty under the Affordable Care Act if they choose not to take insurance.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so there's, families will still choose to do that. I'd say most of that group right there, though, is private insurance. We would have, I can only think of like one off the top of my head that is choosing not to apply for health care.
Usually when they have kids in the mental health world, they're going to want some type of insurance to help them cover mental health, all of these things. So I would probably say most are on private insurance, which then we can't get paid for our services under private insurance, but they can get the services paid for at Northern Pines or other treatment facilities. So
We can't bill for case management services then. So our targeted mental health case management rate, which is set by the state, right now we're bumped back up to 512. That's a part of a formula that's set by the state that always lags behind what you've actually done with your staff. So our formula actually goes down when we don't have enough staff and our caseloads get too high, but it takes a couple of years to catch up. So that and a number of other things impact that rate. So. Our total income, as you see, medical assistance and from Our health plan targeted case management, that might not make sense based on how you saw that MA slide, but what happens when South Country, for example, covers the child, then we bill for case management, we get 100% of that $512. But when we have a medical assistance client, we get 50% of that, and state keeps 50%. So that's why those two parts, the pie chart got a little more equal under the income pie chart. We also get a screening grant from the state, a respite grant, and then when we do have kids on the waiver, we are billing CADI, medical assistance, and that's that income up on the top, the $76,000. So when we bill for CADI, we bill for everything that we do, and we bill for case management. We bill just for the face-to-face that we have with the child or the parents that month. So you get one billable hit, and a CADI, everything that you do is billable in 15-minute increments. So just, I guess in closing, our benefits, I still see, when I manage both child protection and children's mental health, I can truly see the benefits of children's mental health service. We do a lot of prevention services for child protection. There's a lot of things that you help a child and you help a parent understand some of the difficulties of what it's like to live with mental illness. You prevent child protection things from happening, for sure. Or many times we start a child protection case and we refer them for mental health services because that's the real issue. It does reduce out-of-home placements. We work well with our corrections program, and they will refer a lot of early intervention kids into our system through juvenile justice program, and we'll get kids hooked up with mental health services. So it does still defer those deep end costs, I believe, as well as reducing hospitalizations and suicide ideation, and helping kids just prepare to be adults living with a mental illness without the need for hospitalization later on. Challenges could still continue to be, like I'd mentioned, that loss of that residential treatment funding will come about, just really scrambling to find services for crisis respite, day treatment, intensive in-home-based therapy. We're still trying to build providers that will understand transition age youth and the specific skills that those kids need. A lot of those medical assistance services want to just focus on the family and doing family therapy. Well, a kid that's 17 and a half and is getting ready to leave needs a lot more services just beyond that. And so we're still building that as well into that specialized service. We just do not have a lot of placement options when the need arises, and we still do worry about if there'll be changes to the Affordable Care Act and how that could impact our revenue. And as I had mentioned, we just have an increase of kids in our system because of the child protection issue that we're having.
So a lot of information before you under Children's Mental Health Services, and this is again a critical service that I think counties provide to families and help support some of these more difficult to serve kids. As we know, parenting is a very difficult endeavor, and now you throw some mental health issues for kids or trauma on kids into that. And so this service really is trying to build that bridge for both the parents and the kids.
Interesting stuff. Thank you. Questions, comments, concerns?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very kindly.
Thanks, Bill.
Now Brad gets to put on another hat, and
Yep.
we're going to jump right on into the public health report.
So Cindy's going to come up and share. So because we provide services under delegation agreements for health insurance companies, with that comes some fun activities for public health, and Cindy in particular, in planning for all of these audits. So in public health, we actually have 4 health plans that we provide services under. In social services, we only have South Country Health Alliance. So Cindy gets the bulk of this work along with her staff as they learn how to bill and then plan for these audits. So she's going to share results from all 4 audits with our health plans. So
Excellent. Good morning, Cindy.
Good morning, thank you. In talking with you about what happens with the health plans, all 4 health plans we're working under the Medicare benefits for our over 65 population. And so we're working with the people that have Medicare and medical assistance. All of the health plans have 60 data points that they review in our documentation. So they have 60 things that they look at in all of their charts. All of the health plans review both the MSHO and the MSC Plus, and those are just two different health plans within the programs. Within those programs, we have some folks that are on elderly waiver, which means they have services in their home, and some folks that are community well, which means they're over 65 and they qualify based on financial need, but they're not currently receiving services. But we're tracking them and trying to help keep them out of the nursing home. That's the ultimate goal for all the health plans. Maintain their health and maintain them safely in their home. UCare, South Country, and Blue Plus also have us follow their clients once they move into the nursing home. The only exception on our 4 health plans is Medica, and they do take those clients back and follow them with their in-house case managers once they move to the nursing home. So moving to the individual audits, Blue Plus, we average about 120 clients under the Blue Plus health plan. They have the elderly waiver and the community well, so with and without services and nursing homes. All of the health plans choose to do their audits differently. Blue Plus comes on site and goes through our electronic records individually and personally and spends a great deal of time looking at it. I prepared this just before last week when they gave me my results, so results still pending. We did get 2 areas for correction from Blue Plus. One was Blue Plus really wants us to document how we have a conversation with the client about their different health plan options. They're the only health plan that says we have to have a face-to-face conversation with the client and explain the difference between their 2 products. And so they cited us on that because we had a lot of paperwork that we sent out to the clients, but not documentation of actually having a conversation. So that was very, very specific to Blue Plus only. Other health plans want us to have that conversation, but they don't require us to document it. And then the other area for improvement was just timelines. They wanted everything very specific on a particular date to happen. UCare Health Plan does everything very differently. This is our smallest number of people. We only average about 40 people on UCare in our county. They look at elderly waiver, nursing home, and community well. So they do all 3 types of services. They only did a desktop audit, so we had to go through our documents, pull out the pieces of information that they wanted, upload it into their system, and wait for them to look at it remotely in an electronic system. And then there's back and forth. Can we see this? Can we see that? So it takes us a lot of time to do this audit when they're not on site. We had 3 areas for improvement. However, none of those were repeat deficiencies, so that was a bonus. We had a couple of care plans missing closeout dates, so they want us to go back to last year's care plan and say this particular area for our client is still a need or not a need and add a date. So that was missed. And then that rolled over into use of reassessment timelines. So if a client refused a visit last year on May 21st, we have to start calling that client at least a week or 2 before May 21st so that we have 3 opportunities for the client to refuse or 3 attempts at refusal. So if we wait till too close to the 21st of May for this year's call, we're running over the timeline. So they needed to clarify that. And then health plan forms, so they're very, very specific. We can't send out a letter on Morrison County letterhead that explains something to the client. We can only use the forms that they come up with because they're vetted and very specific. So we sent out a form that had clear information, but it was on Morrison County letterhead and not UCare specific. So they want us to correct that. Medica is one of our larger health plans. We average around 130 clients with Medica. Again, we only do elderly waiver and community well, no nursing home. Medica comes and does an on-site audit, which is easier for us because they can come and we can sit side by side, and when they're looking for documents, we can help them locate those. We had 1 area for improvement with Medica and no repeat deficiencies. So they took our information on the assessment tool and they wanted to match exactly what's on the care plan. So if we say on the assessment tool, this person has a family member that manages their finances, but they receive home services from a home care agency, that's a formal service. And they actually counted, if you have 2 informal and 1 formal service on the care plan, the service plan has to exactly match that. And that's not an audit item we've ever seen any company ever focus on. So that one kind of caught us off guard, but very simple to correct. And so that's all we had with Medica. It was a real clean audit. Our last audit was with South Country Health Alliance. This is our largest group of about 150 clients. We use all 3 of their services, the elderly waiver, community well, and nursing home. This was a hybrid audit, which meant that we uploaded a lot of documents and they reviewed some prior to coming, and then they came in person and finished up the audit and helped us face to face, which actually is my preference because then we can kind of get some of the preliminary paperwork done, and then when they show up, it goes fast. We had 2 areas on the South Country audit that were needing improvement. The wording of the care plan goals needs to be more specific, and that's a statewide focus to go to that person-centered kind of thinking, and so they're pushing us down that road to be more specific. And then previous year care plan not closed out, just meaning we didn't go back to last year's care plan and say this is or is not a problem anymore. So going to common themes, because all of them use the same 60 data points, we expect the audits to be similar, and they never are. However, we didn't have any repeat deficiencies. So all 4 health plans, if they found a problem last year, came back this year, we had corrected that problem, but they had a different focus, so they found other things to look at, which is not uncommon. Overall, the reports were very positive for all areas served. All of the health plans had 100% compliance on our nursing home clients, so we really do well in that area. Going forward, the corrective action plans, so all of those things that we talked about that were cited as areas for improvement, we have to explain to them how we're going to improve it, what's our plan for correcting that, and submit that in writing and wait for them to accept the plan of correction. So we're still working on a couple of those corrective action plans. And then as we move forward, we do internal audit reviews and look at some of these items that they found this year so that we know that we don't put those back into our charts for next year. All of the case management charts are now 100% scanned, so we don't do anything with a paper chart. We've eliminated a chart room entirely. And all of the case managers scan all their documents in, so once something is signed by a client, it gets scanned into the chart and the original is shredded. So we've really moved down the road with that process. And then our focus going forward, because DHS is pushing us down that road, is again the person-centered care plan, making sure that the services are appropriate but focused on what the client wants and not what the case manager thinks they need, and finding some balance there, being fiscally responsible at the same time. So that's where we're at with our health plans. Questions?
And just kudos to the staff, Cindy and case aides and case managers, because it is work pulling these charts together, getting the information gathered, putting it together in a way that the health plans can see and understand. And so it does take some work. It's a requirement. I think, rules change at the federal level. They change at the health plan level. And so these are always kind of good kind of foundational activities to make sure what we're doing is what we're supposed to be doing. So as painful as it can be for Cindy and the staff, it is a good process to go through. So
it's definitely a learning tool for us every year. And having 4 health plans can be a blessing and a curse, but our clients have choice, and that's important. It's hard to get through 4 audits, but then we have different ways of looking at things as well, and that helps too, because there's more than one way to do things.
Well, to me, it sounded quite positive, to be honest with you. I don't know, questions, comments, concerns? Anyone?
Thank you.
Good information.
Thank you very, very kindly. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Brad.
that's all I have today. Thank you.
It is 10:18. I think we should take a 5-minute break, and then we should reconvene with the sheriff's report. And gentlemen, it is now 10:25. We'll reconvene. And as I said, we'll reconvene with the sheriff's report. Sheriff, as soon as you're ready.
Okay. Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board.
Good morning.
So today I have
Tim Rummer with us. I'll run through the report, and then I'm just going to have Tim talk about our jail programmer position that he's been with since July of 2017.
Fantastic.
So going through our report, like always, I kind of share some photos that we put on display on Facebook. And the first photo is Chief Deputy Jason Worley. There was actually Boys and Girls Club Week was the title in the month of April. So Chief Deputy Worley spent probably an hour with these kids, played some pool and did some board games and interacted with them. So just thought I would share that. Good PR for our office, and of course, the kids loved it, but I think Jason loved it more, so that's always good. The second photo is a group of kids in Swanville. It was a first grade class in Swanville. And the only reason I highlight this is it was Telecommunicators Week, and these kids and the teacher took it upon themselves to recognize the dispatchers, so they all individually did thank you letters to the dispatchers. And they actually called our office and just said, hey, can you come and pick these up? So we thought, well, better yet, we'll send one of our dispatchers out there and personally thank you. And of course, there's some Q&A, some questions regarding what dispatchers do. So Peggy did a great job explaining that, and Deputy Yoder was with as well. And so just wanted to share that photo. And then the last photo we have, we did some thin ice water rescue. And knock on wood, we didn't have an incident this year, but in previous years, we've had incidents, especially with the thin ice. So, of course, our dive team is trained to do rescue missions, but all of our deputies really never went through a formality of going through this training. So now we're making it mandatory that every deputy puts on this suit, every deputy is familiar with this suit, just in case something like this would happen. You can probably, I don't know if you can distinguish in the photo or not, but one's red. That's the old neoprene suits. They still work, but now we got what's called a Mustang Ice Commander rescue suit. So they're insulated suits. Obviously, they float, and the only thing really exposed is your face. And of course, if you're not going underwater, it's not a big deal. So just wanted to highlight that we take it serious, and we train for everything that we may have to encounter. So any questions on any of those photos? Just doing a quick rundown, you can see the number of complaints received for the month of April was 998. We'll do our 2-year comparison after this. You'll see that our complaints have gone up. Our criminal complaints was 98, and then our non-criminal complaints was 900. Moving down to our drug investigations, we've been busy. You can see we have a lot of agency assists. Central Minnesota Violent Offender Task Force, remember it's 5 county, Stearns, Benton, Morrison, Sherburne, Todd. So we've been busy, and we've spent a lot of time in the St. Cloud area assisting them as well. I will highlight, even though it wasn't the month of April, we did have a traffic stop which occurred on May 10th. And that traffic stop was on Highway 371 north of the Highway 10 and Highway 371 split. Our deputy took over 1 pound of methamphetamine out of that vehicle. And this is something that goes back to drug interdiction training, the skills, the motivation, being proactive, making multiple stops, and knowing what to look for. In this case, it was a front license plate that was missing and a cracked windshield. So these people weren't from this area. They were traveling through. Of course, that's still part of the investigation, working on trying to get some more intel. So I'm not going to go in particulars, but I just want to mention that it is prevalent. It is still flowing through our main corridors. It's coming through our county. So it's important that we highlight it, because in my time here, I haven't seen a traffic stop in this area over a pound, and now I have. So the street value could be anywhere from $8,000 to $13,000. If you break it down in grams, there's 453 grams in 1 pound. A gram in Morrison County could be anywhere from $80 to $100. So It wasn't intended to come to Morrison County, we don't believe, but again, it was traveling through. So I wanted to highlight that. Our training, we talked about the cold water ice rescue. I already showed photos on that. We had 3 officers attend a deaf conference training. It's just really investigative stuff concerning deaths, what to look for. 4 officers attended SOTA. SOTA stands for Specialized Operation and Training Association, so that's all our SWAT guys attending that training. 10 officers had SWAT training. And just to go over our training, we train once a month as a department, but then our SWAT guys train 4 hours a month. So they're doing department training for their 1 hour, but they're also getting 4 hours for doing the SWAT training. And then 2 officers attended the MJPS. I'm going to say that's Minnesota State Jail Programmer Services. And that Tim Brummer would have attended that, as well as our jail administrator. I know it says 1, but it should be 2. Our 2-year comparison, I already noted, everything has gone up. You can see from our complaints, our criminal complaints, our non-criminal complaints, drug investigations, inmates, everything's gone up. The only thing that decreased a little was our civil process papers. Any questions so far? Our criminal complaints, I'll just kind of highlight some of these with the pie graph. If we go all the way down to disturbing the peace, which is going to be the light green, would be the 4 o'clock position. It's at 9%. We had 9 disturbing the peace. Damage to property under that's the light blue 6 o'clock position. We had 9%, which is 9 damage to property complaints. And then the would be like the 8 o'clock position. It would be like the pink shade. We had 20 thefts. And the thefts were anything from thefts from a building or a yard. We had 6 gas drive-offs, 2 vehicle thefts, 1 listed as roadway, so I imagine that would be like a roadway sign. We had 1 cab fare fee that wasn't paid, 1 identity theft, 3 worthless checks, and 1 theft of mail. So that's the breakdown of thefts. And then the yellow percent, which is the green shade for fraud, just like every month, we're still seeing a lot of scams, and that's what the fraud is. Moving on to our traffic citations, you'll see we had 190 events. 23 of those were speed. That's the 12%, the red quadrant on the pie chart. We had 110 verbal warnings. That's the orange, 58%. And then the blue shade, 17%. We had 32 written warnings. Going on to our jail, you'll see we averaged 43 inmates in Morrison County through the month of April. Our total inmates, which include Itasca and Stearns, we had 64 inmates for the average inmate count for April. And then if there's any questions on anything else on the next page, I'll just highlight our out-of-county inmates. We held 40 inmates for the month of April from different counties. Our revenue was $32,780 that we brought in. Any questions on any of that? Okay, a couple things I want to highlight is we just currently got involved, just in case the board hears this. It's called ICLD. It stands for Institution of Credible Leadership Development. And it's a program that the Minnesota Sheriff's Association has put on. And what it is there used to be a tuition cost. Well, we've worked with the NJPA Region 5, and we said, boy, these sound like good courses, but it's a lot of money. It could be anywhere from $1,300, $1,500. So in 2017, we worked with the NJPA. As of 2018, now the tuition's free. Some of the courses, or most of the courses, are online, and it's courses to include like conflict management, versatility skills, organizational development, interpersonal communication, things in that nature that can actually enhance our leadership skills. So the feedback that I have received from other counties who are doing this is very positive. We look at it as every officer is a leader, every officer is in the community. So if we can enhance and expand our leadership skills, let's do it.
And it actually applies to all of us that work at the sheriff's office. So I pushed out a mass email probably a couple weeks ago, informing everybody that this training's here, it's available. The MSA is actually going to, or I'm sorry, the NJPA is actually going to pay this fee, so let's take advantage of it. So if there's any questions on that, it's also post-credited. So as you know, in law enforcement, we have to have 48 post-credits every 3 years to renew our license. So we're actually getting a double bonus by getting post-credits for the courses too.
Sheriff, I'm not going to ask necessarily for a number, but did you get a lot of positive feedback from your staff? This isn't just your deputies on the road. My understanding, anyway, is it's your staff.
Correct.
Did you get a lot of positive feedback from that?
So we just pushed this out 2 weeks ago. So for our staff, we're in the like the crawl phase. We're actually just getting exposed to it. I have a couple people who already shared videos just in 2 weeks saying, "Look at this leadership video. This is amazing. Look what they say." So the feedback has been good, but again, we're just in the crawl spaces or the crawl phase. But the other sheriff's offices within the state that have done it and or have completed it, very positive feedback.
Excellent.
The only other thing I was going to bring up is the Randall contract. I just want to keep everybody in the loop, what's going on there. I was approached by the City Council of Randall a while back, and they wanted some options if they were to disband the police department. So one option, I said, is that we would continue service like any other village within Morrison County, whether it's Sobieski, Upsala, Lastrop, whatever village doesn't have a police department, we would continue to respond to emergency calls and patrol just like we would anywhere else. It would be free of charge. I was asked about a contract, and I said, well, I would have to research it because this is new for me. Under my command, I've never done a contract with any city. So we reached out to a few counties asking what their language was. We also asked what their fees were. And what we did was we looked at a fee that was fairly common, especially with a couple closer counties, and we used that fee and the contract language. I did tell the city of Randall, I said we could strive to do 30 hours. I said, but there is no guarantee. I do know by having 2 extra deputies and my past knowledge working with Upsala, we did a contract years ago with them, that we could get the 30 hours, but sometimes as administration, we'd have to be on the deputies and say, okay, we're watching your logs, make sure you get X amount of hours because it's due by the end of the month. So I know there's not going to be a problem doing this. And I made it clear to the city of Randall that we are not adding any extra staff, and that if they wanted a guarantee as far as somebody in the village and the hours that they wanted, I would have to get additional staff, which means I'd have to come in front of the commissioners to get that granted. So that's kind of where we're at. And if there's any questions, I want to also point out that there is a termination clause in the contract. Our county attorney did review it. And the termination clause is that any party can ask for termination with writing within 60 days. It's kind of a work in progress, but I wanted to mention it, and I guess I want to answer any questions if there's questions.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. With this 30 hours that they want the sheriff's department to guarantee, my concern would be, because we've taken staff away from whatever parts of the town, to get the 30 hours into Randall. So if maybe 20 hours a month is appropriate to do, is there going to be any consequences if they don't meet, the sheriff's department doesn't meet the 30 hours that they're going there?
Well, we made it clear that we're going to strive for 30 hours, and I said you being the city of Randall would be charged accordingly. They asked the opposite, saying, what if at some point that, we want more hours? And I said, this is a work in progress that needs to be determined, and at the end of the day, I really don't know what I can give you. I know from past experience that 30 hours wasn't an issue in Upsala. The issue was we had to really look at the log sheets and make sure where we're at, just to kind of gauge how many hours we actually had and what was left. So at the end of the day, again, it was explained to them that the free service was an option. We'd continue on like any other village, but they wanted to push the contract.
Without a guarantee, because you're not guaranteeing them anything.
Correct. It does state in the contract, let me grab that right here. Anticipated average of 30 hours.
Which is fine with me, because I can anticipate 30 and give you none.
Correct.
At the same time, and there's no issue. I certainly don't want to see the city of Randall coming back to you, calling your name, calling your phone, or your phone ringing off the hook, or messages, why weren't you here? Because that's just the way it works.
I agree with you, Mr. Chair. And at the end of the day, we did make it very clear that, there was a question about daytime hours. Could you have a squad car sitting here at this time frame? I said, in some cases, it would probably work. But you would have to know that if this deputy gets a call for service, he has to go. So there's no guarantee the squad car is going to be sitting there.
Absolutely.
2 hours, 1 hour, 3 hours, or whatever the expectations may be. So we did make that very clear at the public meeting.
And Mr. Chair, I was at the public hearing too, and Sean was completely upfront with them, saying that,
Turn your mic on.
excuse me, he was completely upfront with them. He said the best times for him was going to be between, was it 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. in the morning, which that's the times that their current police officer is patrolling most of the time now, and that he would do his best to get someone there during the day, knowing that there's only 2 sheriff deputies on for the county at that time. So he was straight up forward with them. I can attest to that.
Mr. Chair, if I may. So again, a work in progress. If we feel like things are going south, we can be the party to disengage if need to be.
Very clear. Appreciate the information. Thank you.
I think that what I like about it is it'll give you a lot more time on Highway 10. Up in that area, that's kind of the corridor where there's a lot of the traffic, and your presence there will be good.
Well, and I like the part of you're not taking away from anywhere else in the county, because there is no guarantee of any time that you're going to spend, period, in the city of Randall.
Correct. In most cases, I guess
what it is.
A perfect scenario would be a deputy who lives in Motley's on his way down, spend some village time, log it. A deputy that goes to a call close by, hey, Randall's not too far, we got this contract, spend some time.
Yep.
It's not really taking anybody out of the equation. It's just utilizing our staff and using common sense to make sure we're getting some village time and not really going way out of our way to do it.
Yep.
And utilizing, Mr. Chair, existing staff that are in the rotation. It's not a dedicated time period. That's not what we're talking about at this point in time. So really managing that, and I have no doubt Sean and staff will do that. They do a very good job about making sure they're where they are needed.
Absolutely.
If I may, and Sean, when is this contract maybe going to come to?
So right now, it's like a rough draft. Nothing's been finalized. The city of Randall, after they did their vote to disband the police department, I was contacted via email, and they wanted this contract to go in effect June 1st. So coming up quick.
Well, and if it works out, it's a good win for both of us. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, I hope it does.
Well, Morrison County is a big county. When you have 2 deputies on, if something happens down in Morrill or something happens in Motley, that's a long ways in between, and you've got to hang out somewhere.
Exactly.
So it's kind of a nice place to be on both sides. So thank you for the work that you're doing on that.
Mr. Chair, Tim sat here quiet for this long.
Yeah, which is kind of unheard of.
Are you feeling well, Tim?
Nothing personal.
I'm climbing up. So anyway, Tim Brummer, 27 years with the Morrison County Sheriff's Office, 26 years as our sentence to serve crew leader, and then it'll be a year, July of 2018, as our jail programmer. He's been doing a good job. He works well with the inmates and staff. I don't want to pat him too good, his head might explode. Anyway, long story short, Tim has really been good, because if the staff is short or the staff needs help, he's helping out. but he's also taken his job very serious as a jail programmer, and he's been looking at our existing programs, and he's just thinking to himself, what other programs can we add? And he's added a few programs that are very beneficial in my view, in my opinion. So I'll turn it over to Tim, and maybe you can talk about some of those programs.
Okay. Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board.
Good morning.
Some of the new programs I brought in over the past year, we have an art class every week for 2 hours where the inmates can come in and they do different drawings and stuff with a volunteer. We have a conquering addictions class that's every Thursday. A lady comes in and talks about all types of addictions. She brings in brochures, different sheets that these inmates can have and they can read, and she talks about them about their problems and stuff like that, and leads them on paths that can correct them, whether it's meth, alcohol, gambling, pornography, so on and so forth. I brought Teen Challenge in. I got a representative from Teen Challenge to come in every 2 weeks. He sits and talks to the inmates, tells them about Teen Challenge, what it has to offer. He has applications. If they want to apply for Teen Challenge, whether it's in Brainerd, Minneapolis, or Rochester, they can apply. I fax that Teen Challenge app back to the place they want to go, closest to where they live. Tries to get them on that road to recovery from the crystal meth, etc., the drugs. We have a program every 2 weeks. It's called Christ in Construction. It's a faith-driven program. We have several faith-driven programs. Sheriff Larson supports these programs as well as I do. What they do in that class is talk about Christ and what you can do through that to rebuild your life. A lot of these inmates, their life is here, and I'm trying to get it back up to here. And you can't help the ones that don't want help. It's really tough, but you can help the ones that want help. And that's what I really strive and focus on, is trying to make these people better when they leave our facility than the day they got there. And if you can win that, even with one here and one there, or two here and two there, you've won the battle. You really have. You've won the battle. We have a local pharmacist that comes in once a month and talks about prescription drugs and the abuse of what happens when you get hooked on pain pills and other sorts of prescription drugs, and how it can really dismantle your life. And he brings brochures, literature, hands it out, visits with them, tells them what these prescription drugs, the ones that they abuse, what they can do to you and how harmful it can really be. You know, so we've got that. We have a crystal meth addiction class every week. They come in at 8:30 at night. 1 week they work with the female inmates. The next week they work with the male inmates. This program not only runs here, it goes out of St. Cloud, it goes out of Todd County. These people go all over the place. They talk about all the problems with crystal meth. And again, that's one of our biggest problems right now is meth, along with alcohol, obviously, and prescription drugs. So I'm trying to focus on these things to try to help these people, like I said, be better when they leave than when they get here. And then a few other programs we have. We have church every Sunday. We have your choice programs, AA for males each week, AA for females each week, Bible study, so on and so forth. So we have a lot of programs going on in the jail. And right now our jail counts about at 53. Most of these programs, we get 10 to 12 inmates that go to these. State average is about 5%, so I'm trying to keep it over state average because I keep pushing when I'm in the cell blocks, go to the programs, try to learn something. If you need help, come and see me. Because here's how I look at it, when these inmates come to jail, it's not only affecting them, it's affecting the lives of other people. Their mother, their girlfriend, their children. And if we don't try to help them at all, we've all lost the battle, not only as law enforcement, but as a community. And as a county, we've all lost. So I try everything I can to help these people with what they need help with to get them back better, like I said, than when they left. I just got an inmate a job at a local place here in town. He's been working about 3 weeks. He loves it. It's a $12 an hour job, but that's $12 an hour more than he made when he got here. It's working out real well. And I'm working on with others to get them jobs as well. So I'm working on that. I was at like Sheriff said, I was at the jail programmers meeting, the state one in Alec last month. Every jail programmer in the state was there. We went over all sorts of classes, different opportunities for inmates, things we can do to try to make them better. It was a 3-day conference. It was a very good conference. We have a District 2 jail programmers meeting every other month. I attend that. We take one topic and we break it down and see what we can do, whether it's Huber, whether it's programs, STS, whatever. I still oversee the STS program as a jail programmer, so I'm involved with that. So that keeps me busy as well, doing that. Otherwise, that's really about all I have. We have the rec program. That's kind of our main event, is the rec program. We have up to 35 volunteers come in twice a year. Starts on a Saturday morning at 7 o'clock, goes Saturday night till about 10 at night. And then Sunday morning, they come back about 7:30, and they're there till about 9 o'clock Sunday night. And that involves everything Christ-related, faith-driven. They give testimony. They do drawings. We have priests come in and visit with them. They're singing, all sorts of things. It's very, very good. We usually get about 30 inmates that go. A lot of them get good things out of it, and it helps them. So we're always trying to strive to make them better. That's what I've concentrated on when they leave than when they got there. You know, you can't help everybody with everything, but you try to do what you can. And if you like your job, that's half the battle. But if you love your job like I do, that's about 90% of the battle. And I really, really love helping these people, trying to make them better and help them with their problems along the way. Because there's more than them involved, like I said. There's more than them. It's their family, it's their friends, their children. It's some of the stories I hear daily. It's tough. So I think it makes me try harder to help them more yet. So
Very good. Sounds like a winner, Tim. I appreciate everything that you've reported here. A couple of comments. There's nobody that is forced to do anything that you just got done saying.
You are correct. It's all, yep.
Many inmates, and inmates go from A to Z, and we all know that. Not everybody that is in jail or in a correctional institution is a bad person. There's plenty of bad people. We got that. We all understand that very clearly. The programs that you cited are all part of an accredited jail system. Is that correct? The state has to say this is okay, or, you can't just create a program and bring it into a jail. The state would probably have a comment on it, I'm to assume.
Scotty, the jail administrator, he checks with DOC as the programs come in. But we have some free flow with that. We can bring programs in. Actually, one thing I forgot to mention, we're going to start a program coming up where the sheriff is going to come up, sit with the inmates, and we're going to talk about what we can do for them, or what information they can do for us, or how we can combine to try to make things better as a community. Their input means something too,
Absolutely.
So I think having the sheriff up there, I think it's going to be real important, and I think it's going to
I really like the part about we're doing our best to make these people that are incarcerated to be better people when they leave. That's saying something for the entire staff. And Sheriff, that's saying something for you. It truly is. That you've got somebody that enjoys his job enough to say, I'm going to go that extra step. And I personally appreciate that. Gentlemen, comments?
Want to say thanks and keep doing what you're doing. I like the part where you got someone a job. It's going to be a positive impact to society now, and can't get any better than that. Thanks.
Got to keep trying. Got to keep trying.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, again, kudos to both you guys, that if you have an inmate there that really wants some help, and if we didn't have the programs, how could they get help? But it sounds like you guys are both giving these people the help that they need if they want. You can't force somebody if they don't want to go, like Commissioner Jelinski said, but if the people do want to go, boy, what a great programs you guys have there, and keep up the good work. Thank you.
Yeah, Tim, I've known you for a long time, and I've seen you work on the crew before, and I just got a lot of faith that you're doing a job you love, and you've made a big impact on a lot of these people. So thank you, and thank you, Sean, too.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a good day, both of you.
Have a good weekend. Thank you.
Thanks for patiently waiting.
Weekend, it's
Wednesday.
Tuesday.
It's Tuesday. Yeah,
Well, we got tonight, too, right?
What's that, sir?
We got tonight, too, right? Hillman?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, man. And
Thanks, Tim.
they're gone, and now it's time for extension. Finally.
Another patiently waiting friend.
Sometimes it goes fast and sometimes it doesn't.
Well, that's what I was told.
But we're not going to hurry you either, so take your time.
Well, I don't have a whole lot to report, and I'll just be doing the SNAP and nutrition update, which I believe is third or fourth page in. So I don't have, like I said, I don't have a whole lot of updates. I'm going to start with updating on our One Vegetable, One Community project. So I don't know how many of you have heard about this project, hopefully at least a couple of you. For this project, Morrison County decided we were going to do green beans. So we got a stipend from the university to get funds for, planting, ordering green beans and all that. We actually had quite a few businesses around Morrison County also donate their green bean seeds. So we put together 300 green bean packets with, planting instructions and a link to our Facebook page for more information. They went out to local businesses, organizations all across Morrison County, Upsala, Swanville, Pierce, Randall. I'm probably missing other towns, but all across the county. In addition to that, I helped a safety day camp last week, and I mentioned OVOC that day as well. And we gave all, roughly, I think we had 350 fifth graders come. All of them got sent home with green bean packets. And then also, at the beginning of May, we did a green bean crunch day. So have you ever heard of the Great Apple Crunch that Farm to School does in October? Well, essentially what we did, we piloted similar to that program, and we had Lincoln and Lindbergh and a bunch of the elementary schools around Little Falls, including Dr. S.G. Knight and Randall, sample out fresh green beans and sort of crunch into a fresh green bean. And we were there at Lincoln and Lindbergh to sort of talk to them, discuss with them, talking about eating fresh green beans and, increasing their vegetable intake, and that went over really well. And those two schools also got green bean packets. So we're looking at a little over 900 seed packets went out across Morrison County this month. In addition to those seed packets, we have, a Facebook page, but we're going to upload, growing tips, recipes, and then ideally we're going to look at some sort of wrap-up event towards the end of the summer, maybe like a green bean cook-off or share your favorite recipe kind of thing. The whole goal of this project is just to increase, a healthy lifestyle, getting them more active in the garden, increasing their vegetable intake. I believe the Morrison County Record just got an article out promoting this program this week, yesterday I think I saw it.
Okay.
So look for that as well. Any questions on that program before I move on? All right. I've also been working on our Smarter Lunchroom movement. We've been working with the high school, middle school, elementary schools, and working on what we call scorecards. These are improved, little healthy nudges to sort of encourage the students to choose healthier options, promoting like healthier posters, fun names to make some of the meals seem more appealing and things like that. We did a follow-up scorecard at both the middle school and high school, and I was just going through that data yesterday. The middle school increased from an 18 in the fall to a 35 at the end of April.
Wow.
So almost doubled their score. We're still looking at compiling the data from the high school. The elementary schools, we weren't able to get around and do a follow-up scorecard this spring. We had that set in our plan to do that in the fall. So next fall, we'll have a sort of update on how they did, which gives us more time to work with the schools over the summer and maybe work on maybe some of their menus and layout for the schools. But we've received quite a lot of good feedback. We did a guacamole taste test that went over really well. Sampled out kiwi during Every Kid Healthy Week at the end of April. So we've received quite a lot of good feedback from the staff and students from all the schools so far. In partnership with Essentia Health, we have received a grant from the state. I believe it's from MDH. They want to increase our I Can Prevent Diabetes classes around this part of the state. I believe the statistics are 1 in 3 adults have prediabetes. And with this grant, they really want us to focus on that, what they're calling it the preconception grant. So they're focusing on women of childbearing age. So that's 18 to 44 is what they've determined. So with that grant, we've been working really closely with Essentia Health because they have a set-up referral system. And I'm happy to report that we have a class set up at Piers. We're partnering with also the Piers Villa is going to help us to host the class, and I'll be starting that class in June. So it's a one-year class. We work on, healthy eating, physical activity with a weight loss goal. So that class will be starting June 5th. And these are all ideally, like when we teach, like goes home, like they share that information with their spouse, their kids. So we're affecting more than just the, 10 or 12 people that show up for class. In addition to that, we are looking at getting one going in other places around Morrison County, but it does take quite a bit of legwork to get one up and going, so we might not get that one going till fall. And we're looking at other locations possibly around Morrison County or Little Falls. Those were the 3 big things I had for updates. I've been finishing up with all my schools, getting stuff set up for other summer classes throughout Morrison County. I just heard back this morning I'll be doing another gardening class in Falls Meadow Ridge in town here. So that's going to tie in with our One Vegetable, One Community project with planting green beans. I've got
It sounds to me like you've been plenty busy.
Good. Like to keep busy.
And a couple questions. How do you like your new job?
I'm loving it so far.
Okay. Secondly, I would ask that, do you make an attempt to get to every elementary school in the county? And in particular, I'm talking about Upsala, Swanville.
We have to focus on those free and reduced schools that are 50% or higher. So Piers does not qualify.
Okay.
Swanville, I've reached out to. I haven't heard back yet, but I will be in the Little Falls ones this next coming fall. I've reached out with Motley and Staples because they kind of combined. Randall will be in for sure next year. Upsala, I'm still trying to find out who that contact is because we haven't really worked with them before because they haven't really qualified before. But yeah, I do, all those that qualify, I make an effort to reach out to.
And do you touch base with the senior centers? You mentioned Piers.
Yes, I did a class with Horizon Health, so it is Rose Court and Piers, and I'm blanking on the one in Motley. I believe it's Sunny Pines.
Okay, I don't know.
Yeah, so I've taught at both those classes. I'm actually starting tomorrow with another follow-up class in Motley.
Wow, you are busy.
Yep, keeps me out of trouble.
Gentlemen, questions for Samantha?
Your plate is full.
Very
Thank
full.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very kindly. Good report. Appreciate
Great
it.
rest of your week.
You bet. You too. Let's see. Deb is here, the auditor's report. Have you been patiently waiting? Of course I have.
I just have a few items for you this morning, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
The first item I have is asking for the approval of a tax forfeited property in Green Prairie Township to Daryl Erickson, who is the rightful heir for his mother's property.
I'll make a motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes.
Thank you. We have the renewal of 3 precious metal dealer licenses for Goldsmith Jewelers, Like New Gun and Pawn, and Milgrams Incorporated.
I'll make a motion on all 3.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes.
And we have 2 exempt permits. First one to Horizon Health to hold a raffle October 11th at Falls Ballroom. Second one for Hillman Area Whitetail Management Association to hold a raffle December 1st at Brothers Porcupine Bar and Grill.
I'll make a motion on that.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes.
And then we have warrants.
And I would look for a motion to pay all of the bills.
Also move.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Discussion on paying the bills? It's a roll call vote. Commissioner Wincher?
Aye.
Commissioner Lemire?
Aye.
Wilson?
Aye.
Blaine?
Aye.
And myself is an aye.
Thank you, gentlemen.
That motion passes.
Thanks,
Thank
Deb.
you, Deb.
Thanks, Deb.
Appreciate it. And our next item on our docket is our building update. And we've got my friends, our friends, the Flippy Boys with us this morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. At break time, I did hand out a updated budget. And I'll just give a quick review. Not a whole lot has changed since the last meeting that I was here presenting. At the end of the day, I always look down at the bottom with the contingency amount. As you know, we started off with just a little less than 500,000. Today we have spent 123 of that, given the fact that we started in the second oldest building we're going to be working on, and we had the generator and stuff that we'd talked previous meetings come through. With that being said, I think overall since the last meeting we've had very few changes come through, a couple small ones regarding some data room ventilation items, and we do have a little bit of floor leveling we're getting some prices on right now. But with that being said, I feel the budget's in good shape. So with that, I'll entertain any discussion or questions on the budget and then turn it over to my brother Mike for a little bit of a schedule update.
Questions, gentlemen, concerns, anything?
I don't really have any concerns, just the part that you said the piece you're working on right now is the piece that didn't have good blueprints on what was there. And so most of the contingencies have fallen into that area because of the unknowns. The other two areas, we do have the blueprints and stuff to show what's there. And am I correct on all that?
Yes, once we get into the 90s facility, much more detail was provided. The fact that we had blueprints of the existing structure and the existing mechanical, things of that nature. We still have to go down to the west end towards the end, the public health building, which is a 60s vintage, but the amount of work we have in there compared to the 70s right now is small in comparison.
Yep.
Very positive. Good enough. Sounds like Mike gets to be on the chair now.
Perfect. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pete.
Good morning. Just give an update of what we're working on and what's coming up that we'll be working on. The lower level of the 70s building right now, we're just finishing the last of the hanging of the drywall. We're going to start taping tomorrow down there. Still working on some ceiling mechanical roughings in the lower level. Yeah, also electrical. The upper level, we're working on miscellaneous and pipe insulation in the ceiling space. They're pulling data cable and cleaning up actually today, and we're going to start painting up there tomorrow. So some of the things coming up, just a look ahead schedule. Tile work's going to begin the week of June 4th. Roofing replacement's going to be beginning the week of June 4th. We've got a tentative casework delivery of June 18th and wood doors to be shipped on the 22nd of June. So things are starting to fall together. Ceilings will start to be put in the first week in June also. So things seem to be going well. So
we're moving. I like it.
Yep. So
sounds good.
Any questions?
Mike, when they start on the roof, will they be doing the whole building at one time then?
We're going to start on the 70s building where we're working currently and do that roof first, and then I think they're going to move over and do the 60s work to the west and then go up onto the courts roof or the 90s building roofs. So, but they will continue to work.
Yeah, they'll be continuing the whole thing. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
So
there should be some equipment maybe for that, right? With products going up on the roof and stuff, or what do you anticipate for that?
Yes, I think there's about a total of about 10 semi-loads of insulation that'll be delivered for the roofing products, let alone the rubber. And then the old rock that's on the roof will be sucked off actually with a big vac machine. So that'll be a little noisy for a few weeks while he's here doing that. But basically they come with a big truck with a big tube and it sucks the rock off the roof. So.
A little noisy when they were hammering through the wall right next to my office too, but we managed.
It might even get a little noisier.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. So, but if anybody'd like to come down and take a tour, I'm there every day. So don't hesitate to call me or stop in. So,
any questions, gentlemen?
Thank you. You've been doing a good job.
Sounds good. I appreciate it, both of you. Thank you very much for everything that you're doing.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I was able to meet with the architect and interior design group with the furniture last Thursday morning down in Plymouth, and we kind of got some good ideas on basic options that we'll present and things of that nature. So that was a good meeting. They're going to come back with some pricing on some different audio tools and such to deal with and combat some of the expected issues that we'll have with some open spaces and whatnot. And so some opportunities that exist out there that we're learning about that can maybe help with the overall business of what we do when we adjust to a new space and new neighbors and whatnot as we work together on that. So I appreciate the time, and I'm learning a lot, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I have a question about the furniture. Now, we really don't know what we need for furniture, right? Or we kind of do.
Well, we have a very good idea.
So
yep.
how do you're going to put this out in bids? Like you said NJPA last week or whatever was not part of it or something like that, or maybe I'm going
We
wrong.
looked at a couple of different contracts.
Okay.
So there's a state contract we can buy off of, which in Minnesota it's very well done. We looked at an NJPA contract, and we looked at the another cooperative purchasing contract. And so there were two large vendors in the business of office furniture, and so we went with one that we like best and that had a favorable pricing. And so we're going to have Herman Miller Furniture that we'll look at. We have a very good idea of what we need new, what we can reuse, things of that nature. So, yep. Did that answer?
Yeah, well, you kind of, because I'm just wondering what constitutes, if you're going to bid it, or you just kind of look at quality, which I'm for,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
versus pricing. I know it's kind of difficult, but I just wanted to throw that
We
out
did.
there.
Yep, we looked at that. We compared contracts and we compared pricing and compared products. Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Deb, I think I asked you that question last week, and I think where Randy's coming from is, how do you know what you're bidding? But you took out certain products. I need this many, I need chairs, this and that. You got a price, and I know that the state of Minnesota has good prices on things in there, so there's no issue with that whatsoever.
We have the different vendors compared to kind of generic situations. So not the entire project, but it's kind of hard to do that because we really don't know exactly where some things will be and what we're doing, but I have a very, very good idea. But we took and had them bid out a 6-pack of cubicles with these different specifications and things, and then we compared that way and went forward with it. So I think
That's the state of, they're approved by the state of Minnesota, the one that we're going through?
Yep, it's a cooperative purchasing contract that will.
But we don't have to go through them either. We would not have to go through the state of Minnesota.
No. Yes. Mhm. So lots of choices and decisions to make, and hopefully everything looks good. Otherwise, I'll maybe blame a Philippi or two. No, I'm kidding. It's good. It's going well.
Excellent. Anything else?
I've been meeting and working with our insurance folks that offer county health insurance to our employees. We had a meeting down in Golden Valley, maybe is the location the other day. It's high for the renewal. We've been using our insurance, which is what insurance is for. And as you just heard in the South Country, it's a little bit different product line, but it ebbs and flows. And based upon usage, you never know what your year is going to turn out like. And so we do have an increase. We'll be working with the bargaining units and working with the staff groups for that. Insurance is one of those things that we're in it together, both employer and employees, because employees use it and an employer needs to offer it, and we need to work together to find solutions that best fit the organization. And so I've been busy doing that to get that ready for renewals and open enrollment next fall. I'll be meeting with those groups and will invite you as we move forward with those discussions if you're interested. Otherwise, just business as usual, keep them busy with day-to-day stuff. Any questions or anything that anybody's waiting on from me? I don't know that there's a lot out there. There's a couple issues I'm going to follow up with some of you, but otherwise I will just let me know.
Okay, cool. Next item is going to be committee reports, upcoming schedules, and
What dates we have?
Pardon me?
What dates we have?
Dates are going to be May 27th through June 9th. And today we're going to get to start with Commissioner Blaine.
So
Take your time.
we've got the planning and zoning on the 29th. TSWAC on the 1st. South Country Health Alliance on the 7th. Also, I missed that Board of Adjustments on June 5th and Morrison Todd Wadena Community Health Board on the 6th.
You're the representative for that one, right?
Okay, that answers the question. That's not that
Yeah,
annual
it's a
thing.
representative thing. There's two of us.
Okay. All right. Mike?
I have to ask the question there. I have Planning Commission here on Memorial Day, but it's not. That got switched to something, did it not?
We have
Planning Commission?
29th.
It's supposed to be on the 28th.
Yeah, what's?
It's the 29th.
Well, that's planning session we have.
No, we got planning session, but I think there's a planning commission meeting.
So that got moved to the 29th
I
because
didn't pay attention to the dates when I got sent out.
Pretty sure it is.
I've got.
That's what I have too, but that's planning and zoning basically.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, but that's planning commission meeting.
29th?
Yep.
It's up in there.
Okay.
I had an email on that from someone, and I got to see if I can find it, but I'm pretty positive.
See if I can find it.
Okay, then I've got, now Lake Shaman doesn't have something on June 1st. That date was changed to today, right? Okay. Public Works on the 4th. And then we have a planning session.
What public works do we have on? Oh, excuse me.
Public Works planning.
I got planning
Sorry.
Public Works on Monday.
Yep.
8:30,
So
right?
that'll be at 8 o'clock. Now, is the planning commission, I presume that's the meeting at night at 8:30, at 7 o'clock. And then the board meeting?
Are you talking on the 4th now?
I'm talking on the 4th. I've
That's
got
Jeff
Board
sent
of
us that
Adjustments.
one.
Oh, Jeff
That one
sent us that
planning
one?
session one?
Okay.
Yeah. So that one you can,
So
That one should be deleted?
we don't have anything on the planning on the
we have
4th.
the Public Works planning.
Right, but
That's
that's
it.
not a
Okay.
planning commission.
And we've got,
No, we have there's a Board of Adjustments meeting, I believe, on the 4th.
that's
On
on
the
Tuesday.
5th.
That's on the 5th.
Should be on Tuesday.
Yeah, it should be, yeah.
You getting this, Tabitha?
We have most of this down.
Save that video. Oh,
Yeah.
it needs,
Can't find the plan.
Okay.
We're okay.
We're fine.
We're good.
This probably doesn't.
Sorry, Mike. You're
Well, let's just back up so we got these right. On
You're
the
still on.
4th
Go ahead.
On the 4th, we have Public Works,
Yep.
right? Okay, now the 5th, I've got Board of Adjustment,
Yep.
got board meeting,
Yep.
and I got a public hearing with RDFA.
Okay.
On the 6th, Tri-County Health Board, which he talked about. 7th, I've got Council of Aging,
And that's at
10 o'clock in Sartell. And are we done on the 9th? Is that where we're done?
We go through the 9th, that's correct.
Okay, that's it.
Okay, Mike?
29th, 7:30 a.m., HRA. And this June 4th, we have that Little Falls Township deal at 5:30. And the 6th, Public Health at 5 p.m. The rest, everybody else got it.
Randy?
And I think they covered all of them for me. I'm good to go.
Okay. So let me take a peek here really quickly. TSWAC, yeah. On the 7th of June, I've got a legislative committee meeting. It's a phone conference that's at my house, 10 o'clock in the morning. On the 8th, I believe there's a armor rack meeting at Morrison County. I don't know where that is going to be held at all. That's for
For you,
people
I
to
have
do.
on the 31st. Is that anything?
Me?
At
I'm
the
the-
Initiative Foundation?
I don't know.
Department of Ag, nitrate rulemaking. That's on for
Ooh, you know what? I wrote that down for some reason or another. Where did I get that from?
Yeah. I've seen that.
And I believe that I am going to attend that.
That's so we're going to
The
publish that.
31st, yep.
And then is there-
That was early in the morning, wasn't it?
Yeah,
8 o'clock?
8 o'clock. And then the public safety meeting, is there one on the 4th? I had that from someone's calendar.
Yeah, you had it from me. There's a public safety meeting, and I don't know that I'm going to make that. But there is one, and I may. That's at 6:30, and I
Yep.
don't know where that's held either. I think at the Little Falls Fire Hall. I think.
Okay.
But I don't know that.
Okay. Otherwise, that's-
Okay.
I got it all.
Very good. Gentlemen, is there anything further for the board? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none. This meeting is adjourned at 11:20.